Today I'm talking about Ocean's 8, the somewhat reboot that's pretending to be the fourth installment in the Ocean's 11 property, which was also a reboot to begin with. Let's start. Upon hearing Ocean's 8 was going to be an all-female cast, somewhat reboot of the Ocean's 11 property, pretending to be a sequel, I had a heavy eye roll. I think a lot of people did. This was hot off the heels of the Ghostbusters fiasco. I think it was the most disliked trailer of all time, and Hollywood and the director and some of the cast members chalked that up to just good old-fashioned sexism, and they took that to their graves. Now, that doesn't mean nobody was sexist. I'm sure there was plenty of people that didn't want a single member of the Ghostbusters to be a woman because they have mental issues and will die alone, probably slow and painfully. But for me and many others, I speak for many others, we didn't want a new Ghostbusters unless it had the original cast. Period, full stop. Ghostbusters was lightning in a bottle. Ghostbusters 2 couldn't even deliver on the magic of the first. Now, I'm an apologist for Ghostbusters 2. I happen to like it, but I can see its issues. I can see the shortcomings. Getting the cast was ideal. Getting the same writers, the same directors, everything that went into that had to line up and work. Hell, even when you do line everything up, like, for instance, Arrested Development has done, it still doesn't work out. I don't think there's many people that will argue me that the new Arrested Development is a shadow of its former self. It was just a tough proposition, and with 30, 40 years of arguments with Bill Murray and other cast members, multiple script rewrites, it just wasn't in the cards. So all that said, here comes Ocean's 8. And I'm thinking, oh shit, we're gonna keep doing this. We're just going to keep shoving women in these originally male-driven roles because Hollywood's too fucking stupid and creatively bankrupt to come up with brand new, fresh ideas for women to star in. I guess the 80s and 90s weren't good enough with the Kill Bills of the world. I think that was the 2000s. Maybe late 90s. The Kill Bills, the Aliens, the Halloweens, the Terminators. I mean, my God. My favorite movies have strong female leads, and it wasn't thrown down our throats. It was just there. We just let it happen naturally. But because Hollywood is in such a garbage place right now with all the sexual harassment, with the Me Too movement, they're course correcting. Once you go one way, you have to fucking put the pedal to the metal the other way. So with all that said, cut to the chase, how was Ocean's 8? It was okay. It was alright. I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. I watched it. I thought there was some stuff that worked. There was quite a bit that didn't work. But at the end of the day, I love a good heist flick, and it produces one. And then it continues to run for another 20 minutes once the heist is over, which was weird. So let's start with what worked in Ocean's 8. The cast, for starters. Some of the strongest, most fantastic, hardworking women in Hollywood today are in this. And Rihanna. And since this is billing itself as the fourth installment of the Ocean's franchise, we have Debbie Ocean, played by Sandra Bullock, who leads this thing. I was a bit worried that she'd be able to pull this character off, because usually I see Sandra and I think of her in more comedic roles, or she's kind of aloof most of the time, but she pulls it off. She does a good job as kind of the straight-laced, no questions asked character. You got Cate Blanchett, who's been on fire lately in roles. She's great here. She's kind of the Brad Pitt of the picture, playing off of Debbie's. We don't see a lot of them until 30, 40 minutes into the picture. It's really just a Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett situation for a long time. And while those ladies can pull a picture on their own, I wanted the whole crew in play. And when they eventually do team up and we get those back and forth moments, the thing is firing, and it's firing hot. Unfortunately, as I've stated, it takes a while to get that momentum going, and I think I'm blaming the director more than anything else. Well, and the writer. I'll blame the writer too. Because at the end of the day, Ocean's 8 just isn't a very interesting heist movie, and it's definitely not as slick as some of these old ones. And that was the other thing I kind of scoffed at here, because the original has them knocking over casinos and high security mansions and things of that nature, and here we have a bunch of ladies attending a fashion show to steal a necklace. We're Hollywood, we're not sexist, but we're gonna put these women in like the most traditional concept you could possibly think of. I'm surprised the big heist wasn't for the ladies to just steal perfume. Oh wait, Sandra does that within 10 minutes of the flick. It would be extremely easy to just destroy this movie's script. You could just look at pretty much any scenario that takes place throughout and go, there's no way that would happen, or why didn't this person just do this, or how did that not pick up that on the security? It doesn't matter. I mean, you got to really shut the brain off for heist films in general. Even the Ocean's movies are like that in general. Ocean's 11 I watched just a few nights before, which is still a goddamn great film. It's slick, it's stylized, everything's working at all times, but you could still easily look at this heist and go, but really? Really? Anyway, back to the director, Gary Ross. He did not do the previous films. He doesn't have much experience in directing at all. I mean, he does, yet he doesn't. He films like a new movie every 10 years. He did Seabiscuit. He did the first Hunger Games flick. And I don't know if he did another movie since Hunger Games up until this one. So he takes big breaks in between. I don't know if he's just got to eat every so often, every 5 years. He's like, I better do a fucking movie quick. Let me just phone this in. And that's kind of how Ocean's 8 felt. It did not have that look, that flair. And when this starts early on, there's a kind of a bird's eye view that slowly zooms down to our two lead actresses. And it's just kind of ugly. It's not framed up well. The second or third unit must have shot it off of a drone from, like, controlled by a guy's phone or something. It just didn't look good. And that's throughout the movie. There's lots of these shots where I'm just sitting here going, this is the best take they had. This is the best way he wanted to frame this scene up. And yeah, no, I'm not a director. And so I always get that comment like, if you're such an expert, why don't you make a movie and see how hard it is? Oh, okay. You have $100 million lying around and access to top tier actresses that I can use to make an Ocean's 8. I'd love to. I would be glad to. I would relish it, you stupid prick. Helena Bonham Carter was a little bit weak in this for me. She's usually the highlight for movies. That's my Bellatrix. That's Lestrange. Here, I didn't get her character. There's a lot of setup where when they're getting the crew together, a lot of them are just like, yeah, I'm in, with very little convincing. It's like, hey, I know you are a well-renowned model or a designer, and you're not doing too well. You want to help us rob a $120 million necklace or whatever it was? And the person's just like, yeah, I do want to do that. And then they're just part of the crew, and there's not that level of camaraderie I got from the other ones, that friendship, that bond outside of the two leads. There's just kind of a lot of strangers in a room. Things that did work in the story, I got a kick out of whenever one of the characters had to like take a job full time to kind of get the ins and outs of the company. And it was even better because one of them, I have no idea what the name is, but she's really good at it. Like, she could have just done this for her job and been set. So that was fun. It reminded me of The Score, which is a far better film with Robert De Niro and Edward Norton. If you haven't seen that, I think a lot of people haven't. It went under the radar. Criminally underrated. It's a great movie. I don't mean underrated as in reviewed. I think it rated high. Just underrated as in it's not really talked about or respected like it should be. That's great. The Heist is a good movie. Inside Man. If you like heist films, Inside Man is awesome. That's what it's called. Italian Job is a nice little watch. The remake, I think that was a remake too. I knocked Rihanna earlier, but she's not bad in this. I think it's just the fact that it's Rihanna. It's really hard for me to see her as not this pop sensation with her, her attitude and her cool outfits and whatnot. It's like putting Taylor Swift in a film. It just doesn't work for me. I don't care how good of an actress she is. I just can't get past it. Somehow Will Smith worked. Somehow he was able to do it both. He was able to do it all. It's like Mandy Moore, I guess. Mandy Moore is just a goddamn treat. I love her. Anyway, Rihanna's fine. They give her like a stupid persona, 9-ball, I think is her name, and they really drive that home. She's got like a 9-ball mouse and a 9-ball sign, and everything's 9. It's kind of it's even more. I guess they didn't want to do 8-ball because that would have been too on the nose. Maybe they don't want to do an Ocean's 9. Like I assume they're going to do a trilogy, Ocean's 8, 9, 10, and then lead into 11. Maybe they want to do a 9-ball spin-off, Ocean's 9 ball. Anne Hathaway's my favorite here, which is often the case. She plays a wealthy, stuck-up, into herself, incredibly attractive. I mean, she's playing Anne Hathaway. Those are my initial thoughts. I think you'd enjoy it if you like those other movies I mentioned. It's harmless. It's going to get you through the day. You're going to have a nice 2 hours in and out, and you're not going to be checking your watch. Although there was 2 gentlemen checking their phones constantly, which I love.